Not so long ago, there was a beautiful Jewish maiden by the name of Liliane. Now, the day after the Sabbath day was to be Liliane's wedding day. And a few days before the Sabbath, she and her mother were having a discussion. Liliane's mother dearly wanted her daughter to wear her own wedding gown. But Liliane had seen a beautiful garment in the window of the merchant in the town. And even though it would cost her all her savings, she longed to have this gown for her wedding day. So they got into a very fierce argument. And finally, the mother was so angry, she said to her daughter, "Go to the devil!" And she went out and she slammed the door behind her. Now Liliane still wanted to have this beautiful gown for her wedding. So she went to the merchant's shop. And when she entered the shop, there was a woman dressed in the richest clothes that Liliane had ever seen, jewels dripping from her fingers. And there she had an array of clothes, dresses all around her that she was buying, including the one that Liliane wanted for herself. So Liliane was distressed. So she went up to this woman and she said, "Oh, madam, please, I'm so sorry, but I so dearly wanted this gown to be my wedding gown." And this very richly clad woman said, "Oh, my dear, you can have it. Since it's going to be your wedding gown, I give it to you as a gift." "Oh, no, 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 no," said Liliane. "I want to pay for this gown." "No," said the woman, "this is your wedding gown. Allow me to give it to you as your wedding present. But please, only one thing. Will you come back to my house and show me yourself clad in this gown?" So Liliane thought to herself how pleased her mother would be that she didn't have to use her savings to buy this wedding gown. And so she agreed with the woman to go back to her house. Well, the woman gathered up all the clothing, including Liliane's wedding dress, and they got into her rich carriage, and they went back to a house such as Liliane had never seen in her life. It was a palace with riches and gold ornaments and marble statues filling the whole house. And then the woman took out the gown that was for Liliane and said, "Here, go into this room and change into this gown so that I can see you." So Liliane was guided into the room, and when she got into that room, she found that every wall was covered with mirrors. So Liliane took off her clothes and she put on her wedding gown. And when she looked in the mirrors, she saw how beautiful she was, the silver and gold thread glistening in every mirror that she looked at. And she thought to herself aloud, "I wish I could stay here and be like this forever." But then, when she tried to open the door to come out and display herself to the rich woman, the door was locked. Unknown to Liliane, this richly clad woman was none other than Lilith, the mother of the king of the demons. Now, when Liliane did not go back to her house that evening, or all the next day, or all the next evening, and it came to the evening of the Sabbath day, the mother and father were so distressed, they went straight to the rabbi. And the rabbi said, Go back to your house and celebrate your Sabbath day as though Liliane were with you. So that night, the rabbi asked for the answer in a dream. And sure enough, the next morning, the rabbi had the answer as to why Liliane was taken. So the rabbi called Liliane's fiancé to him, and he said, Are you willing to risk your soul to save your bride? Now, the custom was that the fiancé was not permitted to see his bride. He had never seen the face of his bride-to-be, Liliane. But he longed to be wed. He longed to be in the arms of his bride and consummate the marriage. So he said to the rabbi, Yes, I will do whatever you tell me to do. So the rabbi said, Come with me. So the rabbi took the fiancé and they got in a carriage. And the carriage took them way out until they came to a field. And when they descended from the carriage, the rabbi took his staff and he drew a big circle. And he told the fiancé to place himself in the middle of the circle. He said to him, In this circle you will be safe. But in the coming moments, many demons will come, and they will abuse you, they will threaten you. Take no heed of them, and do not, whatever you do, answer them. After this, many carriages will come, and they will ignore you, and you must ignore them. But then a golden carriage will arrive that will be driven by a man with only one eye, and beside him will be the king of the demons. You must eyeball the king of the demons. You must fix your gaze on him without faltering. If you avert your gaze for even an instant, your bride will be lost forever. Sure enough, after the rabbi left, the demons came. They did abuse, they taunted, they threatened. But even though he was fearful, he took no heed of them. Then, just as the rabbi had said, along came the carriages, and he ignored them, and they ignored him. And then the golden carriage arrived, and there was the blind man, one-eyed, and beside him this very regal character who could only be the king of the demons. Now, as he was directed, the fiancé fixed his gaze on the eyes of the king of the demons. And, as was said by the rabbi, the young man said to the demon, "Why have you taken my bride?" And the king of the demons said, "Why? Her mother gave her to me. And besides that, she herself stated that she wanted to stay in my house forever." The young man said, "She is betrothed to me. She belongs to me. She is my bride." But just at that moment, the young man heard some pitiful cries and weeping, and he knew that it was his bride to be. And if he had have been able to look, he would have seen that his bride was descending into the earth and was already up to her neck. But the young man, overcoming his fears and the longing to look and help his bride to be, kept his gaze fixed on the eyes of the king of the demons. As this time passed, the rabbi came along in a carriage with helpers, and they began to dig the bride out of the earth. The demons who were surrounding them did not intrude or interrupt what they were doing. When they dug her out, her beautiful gown was covered in worms and maggots. They very quickly stripped her of this shroud-like garment and gave her fresh clothes to wear. But as the young man kept his gaze fixed on the eyes of the king of the demons, a strange thing happened. That which was the demon, the carriage, and the demons who accompanied him began to fade, diminish, until they disappeared entirely, as though they never were. Of course, Liliane wore her mother's wedding gown for the marriage that took place, and they lived happily and blissfully, never to be bedeviled by demons again. There have been several stories over these last days of devils and demons. But what arises for you from our experience? We've all been bedeviled in one way or another. How does this story resonate? What does it bring up for you? What is its point? What's its key? In other words, we could say, what have you found to be your ultimate weapon against any demon that might beset you? And
stillness.
yes, stillness. And
Light.
yes, and
Courage.
yes,
Stay focused.
stay focused, yes.
Well, if you keep looking at something that you need to conquer, and you keep your focus on it and you keep looking, then the illusion will fade and the truth will appear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Isn't that our experience with anything?